All right, some tweets for you guys. Hashtag TYT Live to talk to us throughout the show. Davos Seaworth says, Rand started the brush fire of liberty? Big deal. Cenk started the pine tree fire of liberty back in the 80s. So that's an awesome reference to
I don't get that.
A story I've told in the postgame where I lit my backyard on fire and nearly burnt down the whole neighborhood. So if you want to hear that story, join us, tytnetwork.com/join.
If you become a member, you get to know things that even I, as a more than 4-year employee, don't know.
That's right. How did we eventually put out the fire? Only one way to find out. tytnetwork.com/join. Okay, good luck finding that postgame, by the way. Anyway.
You use the search engine.
Right.
Just put in the keywords.
Bob makes a great point, which is not often because normally Bob is wrong again. Mm-hmm. But in this case, Bob F. is right. He said, don't forget the reason these scumbags, quote-unquote, suspend their campaigns instead of dropping out. They can still raise money from suckers. That's right.
Yep.
Rand Paul ran a deficit, ironic, in his campaign, and so he's still going to have to collect money, and in order to do that, he has to have, technically, still have a campaign. Great point, Bob.
Yeah.
And then John Connor says, if Senator Sanders wants to teach a large audience, forget CNN, NBC, etc., get yourself on the Young Turks, sail to victory. Well, hard to disagree with that, John. And then finally, Brian Newton, wow, just wow, with the whole please clap thing for Jeb Bush. He said, I think Jimmy Dore did almost as much to destroy Jeb Bush's campaign than Trump. I mean, at least for anyone watching the Young Turks, that's absolutely true. I don't know about you guys. I cannot think of Jeb Bush without thinking, come on, give me a break.
I hate Donald Trump more than I hate almost anyone. And I mean like historical dictators and despots included. But if he at one of the debates just says, give me a break, I will vote for Trump. If he does that. Probably not going to happen.
Jeb Bush in the same way as Jimmy Dore does. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, forward.
Okay, let's actually talk about Trump. We here at TYT and many people, both an online media, TV media, gave Donald Trump a healthy amount of credit. More credit than he's gotten for anything else in his past because of the way that he accepted his defeat in the Iowa caucus. He came in second. We expected him to melt down, but instead he delivered a relatively mature, if brief, message congratulating the winner and thanking the people of Iowa. So he didn't melt down, at least not immediately. It took about a day, and then he trumped the shark again. So his new theory now is that he lost not because he's incompetent and had no ground game, didn't understand retail politics, didn't care at all about Iowa, but that Ted Cruz stole the election. So he began tweeting. We're going to show you a few tweets. This is not all of them. If you followed him on Twitter, he goes crazy. Ted Cruz didn't win Iowa. He stole it. That is why all the polls were so wrong and why he got more votes than anticipated. Far more votes. Bad. If you have 4 more characters, use them. During prime time of the Iowa caucus, Cruz put out a release that real Ben Carson was quitting the race and to caucus or vote for Cruz. Many people voted for Cruz over Carson because of this Cruz fraud. Also, Cruz sent out a voter violation certificate to thousands of voters. That is true. We'll come back to that. And finally, Cruz strongly told thousands of caucus voters, in case somebody wasn't following that Trump was strongly in favor of Obamacare and choice. A total lie. Why can't he say I? Why can't he say I was? Anyway, based on the fraud committed by Senator Ted Cruz during the Iowa caucus, either a new election should take place or Cruz results nullified. I don't think either of those things is going to happen. What do you think, Cenk?
Yeah, he might be in the midst of trumping the shark here. And it's hard to tell with Trump because you think he's about to go down and then he comes right back up in this roller coaster. But here he seems like a crybaby.
Yeah.
What are you, stupid? We don't redo caucuses.
Just redo the whole thing.
That's not a thing that happens in American politics. This guy doesn't know anything. I know that we already have established that fact fairly convincingly, but like the idea that we do a redo of a vote is preposterous, right? So now, and then of course, as always, he's a child, and I always feel bad to children when I say that, to compare Trump to them. But ending a tweet when you're running for president with bad, okay, is crazy talk. And then he, at one point, one of the tweets he said, the first one that John read for you, he illegally stole this election.
And then took it down.
He had to take it down and take out the word illegal because that's bad and unprovable and might get him in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? Now, let's go to the substance of what he's saying. Mm-hmm. So I ruled on the first part of this yesterday. So Ben Carson crying about how Cruz said he was getting out of the race because a reporter, Chris Moody from CNN, had talked to Ben Carson's campaign. They said he was going to Florida. Moody reports that, and then the Cruz campaign goes, oh, maybe he's dropping out of the race. If I was a Cruz campaign, I'd have done the same exact thing. Okay, you knucklehead, you don't say you're going to Florida instead of New Hampshire right before the Iowa caucus to get fresh clothes unless you're stupid. Or you want people to think you're dropping out. So I have no sympathy for Ben Carson. I think what Cruz did there, in my opinion, is perfectly okay. Yeah, they stretched what Carson said. Have you been paying attention to the Republican primaries? They stretch everything, right? Yeah. And that's the least of their problems. Okay. Now, the voter violation thing that you mentioned.
That he sent out before the election.
Right. And that was not just about Carson voters. What it did was, and this is a dirty trick, although it's a bit of a classic dirty trick, they sent a voter violation to scare the living crap out of people, saying, you're not voting enough. And your neighbors, you're getting an F. But some of your neighbors are getting A's and B's because they're voting enough. And they said, if you don't go vote for Cruz, on Monday you might get another violation.
I don't know how.
Okay.
The putting that you have, as if, first of all, and it says official, and I was pissed off about this even before it happened. I could almost understand how you could be tricked into thinking that they grade how much a person votes. But then to say you have to go vote for this particular person, I think every human who looks at that says, no, I don't. I don't have to do that.
That's not remotely true.
Not in America. We don't have to do that.
Yeah, that's not remotely true. At least 20% of the people that look at that and go, oh, God, I got to get out there, I guess.
Yeah. Now, this is a thing that happens all the time, and I personally think if you wanted, like I know they're always going to say that it's a surrogate or whatever. I think that these sorts of things should be in some way punished or penalized. When the actual election day comes around, they're going to do their thing where, due to unexpected demand, Republicans are going to vote on Tuesday, Democrats are going to vote on Wednesday. They always do that. They should shut a campaign down someday that does that to send a strong message. But they're not going to do that.
Yeah, you can't.
I don't know how they would, and they're not going to. But so here's the thing. I don't even really like the first thing that Cruz did. I certainly don't like the second. But here's what I know didn't happen. It didn't result in him getting thousands and thousands and thousands more votes. Trump underperformed the polls by anywhere from 5 to 12 points. And that wasn't because Cruz bent the rules.
Okay, so the voter violation thing is clearly a dirty trick. It's the kind of dirty trick invented by the Republican Party. Karl Rove used to do that almost before every single election. So in the South Carolina primaries, when George W. Bush was running against John McCain, he unleashed one of the dirtiest tricks of all time when they put out flyers saying that John McCain had an illegitimate black daughter. In reality, he had an adopted daughter from South Asia. So for Republicans to be shocked and chagrined now, if somebody might do a dirty trick in a primary, please spare me the outrage.
By encouraging turnout.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of turnout, by the way. Maybe it was due to Cruz.
And I think the reality is that Trump, who's an idiot and didn't even realize what a ground game is, now, like somebody told him at his advanced age, he's 69 years old, and somebody said, hey, this is how American politics works, you jackass. Yeah. A ground game is when you need to go out and get people to vote for you on the day of the election. Oh, now that he knows this, wait till you see the dirty tricks he unleashes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that he just saw it and thought, God damn it, why didn't I think of that?
He's going to get dirty. I mean, he's already incredibly dirty in the things that he says. Can you imagine now? Now, I will say, the first thing with possibly getting some Carson voters to come over to him, I guess I wouldn't like that on the Democratic side. But if the idea is that Carson supporters don't think that they should support Carson because Carson is going to win, which, by the way, is accurate, and they choose Cruz over Trump, they should be allowed to put a second choice anyway, I personally think. So I don't even think that that's illegitimate. Now, I'm going to possibly cause you to think that I'm a hypocrite. They're complaining about the election being stolen. Trump is, when he lost by 4 points under Cruz. On the Democratic side, Bernie lost by between 0.2 and 0.3. And I remain convinced that Martin O'Malley thing is what did it. That was 0.6. That's twice as big as the gap. Not a couple of thousand votes when you're down by 4. Martin O'Malley didn't get 15% in any precinct. He didn't get 6 times his normal support. That was a result of the Clinton campaign strategically throwing voters to cause Martin O'Malley to be ruled a viable candidate and take those SDEs away from Bernie Sanders. I don't even really care. I'm not making a federal case out of it, but I think they actually have a point. And he's not making that case. Bernie Sanders actually could make that case and isn't, but Trump, he does look like a baby as a result of this, I think.
All right,
and he did what we thought he was going to do.
My final 2 points are, there's no crying in politics. Okay, so especially on the Republican side. Oh, no, he did a dirty trick. Oh, did he? Oh, that's too bad for you. Okay, so my second point is, if Democrats do it, since Democratic voters are decent people, they have a right to be outraged. So if Hillary Clinton said, voter violation, you must vote for Hillary Clinton, get out there now. Or if Bernie Sanders did that, it would go, whoa, that's way outside the bounds. You can't do that, right? But on the Republican side, they're all dicks anyway. They're supposed to be dicks. They're voting for the biggest dick.
Yeah.
So if they do a dirty trick, I think that, and Republican voters find out about it, they might be more predisposed to voting for them.
Yeah.
Like, hey, that's clever. Way to go, man.
Yeah.
Man, you really dicked us over. You've got my vote. That's what a Republican voter does every day anyway.
And plus, if it results in Trump losing, anything goes. I don't even care.
Right.
Well, really fast, I do want to. Can we play that video of? Let's see, the video 5 actually. Trump talking about why one of the reasons he might have lost in Iowa. Because I have a point I want to make based on that.
Yeah. Let's set that up. This is a good one.
Okay. So Trump was recently interviewed about his surprisingly poor performance in Iowa. He did come in second, but he lost by a significant amount under Cruz. And in that interview, he revealed a striking ignorance, even for Donald Trump. Let's watch.
Well, it's a little different because the caucus system is very complicated. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen with the caucus. You know, you think everything's fine, and it's not like you walk in and you vote and you walk out. You know, you're in and out in 10 minutes or 2 minutes. The caucus system is a complex system that I was never familiar with. I mean, I was never involved with the caucus system. Don't forget, Joe, I'm doing this for the first time. I'm like a rookie, and I'm learning fast, and I do learn fast.
Do you feel in some ways you need to have a little bit more of a conventional campaign, which is to say more organization on the ground going forward and more of a team that's working on those kind of things?
Well, I think we could have used a better ground game, a term I wasn't even familiar with. You know, when you hear ground game, you say, what the hell is that? Now I'm familiar with it. But, you know, yeah, I think in retrospect we should have had a better ground game.
So, sorry, I was so surprised by his lack of knowledge. Sorry. So there, he reveals he doesn't know what a ground game is. He doesn't know basically what retail politics is. If you're not familiar with this, he would fly home from Iowa after his events each time he visited. He'd fly and do an event, fly back to New York every time almost. That's crazy. Yeah. And that almost certainly, that and the Fox News thing is probably why he actually lost. But he's not familiar with any of this stuff. And the point that I want to make about this is, I was seeing from butthurt Trump supporters when he lost that they were like, oh, well, nobody thought he was going to win in Iowa, even though he was up by like 6 or 8 points right before the end. And he didn't really have an organization anyway. It's you guys who've been saying he should be president because he's great at organizing things and he's a great manager and he always surrounds himself by the smartest people and shows great leadership. So even if somehow he got to 69 without knowing what a caucus is or how it works and has run for almost a year as a presidential candidate without understanding that stuff, under your logic, he's the man to put people into places underneath him, middle management, that'll run this stuff and make sure that he wins. And instead, he showed a startling ignorance and incompetence in being unable to do that, which should shake your confidence in his ability to run this government like it's a business.
Yeah, I will add that he's a loser. And because he lost, by definition. And I don't mean that in a generic sense. I mean it in exactly the way that John is describing. He was a poor manager. He showed great incompetence by not really understanding how a caucus works.
It was a mess.
Yeah.
A mess.
His campaign was a mess. He not knowing what a ground game is when you're running for president. Now, if you're a plumber and you don't know what it means to have a ground game in politics, that's okay. You're not a politician.
Yeah.
If you're running for president, a ground game is getting out the vote, having an organization on the ground where people will actually encourage others to come out and vote for you on the day of the election. That is among the different things you do with a ground game. For you to not understand the most simple part of electoral politics while you're running for president shows enormous incompetence.
Yeah.
No, he's not a good manager. He's a terrible manager.
Surrounds himself with yes men.
And this fish it rots from the head down, right? And so when somebody who's managing the whole process doesn't care, is lazy, doesn't care to find out how you win, well, then guess what happens? You don't win. Instead, you become a loser like Donald Trump was. So if you want to support a loser who doesn't know how to manage anything, I guess go for Donald Trump.
Yeah. And just really fast, we're going to have probably a story later on in this week on this when more polls have come out. But the initial first polls after the Iowa caucus for New Hampshire show that Trump still has a very healthy lead. But in the 3-day rolling poll that they did, Marco Rubio went on the first day from 8% of the vote up to 10 on the second, up to 12 on the third. Now, that still puts him more than 20 points behind Trump, but it does show that he's initially gaining some steam coming out of his surprising performance right below Trump in Iowa.
So, listen, this Saturday debate for the Republicans is going to be huge.
Yes.
Because this is when either Trump reasserts himself, and he easily can, right? Or begins to flail. So, high drama.
Yes, it's going to be exciting.
Drama on the open seas there. Okay, so, by the way, we're covering that. We're also covering a town hall tonight, and then got a debate on Thursday night. Tonight's at 8 o'clock Eastern, right here on tytnetwork.com/live, and all of them will be on tytnetwork.com/live. So don't miss any of those. I can't wait for that Republican one, because it might be absolutely critical to how the rest of the race unfolds.
Although the thing is, like, the person who beat him should use that against him, make him look like a fool, make him flail, but it's Ted Cruz.
Yeah, well, Ted Cruz had a nice little line in the press. He said, I guess the reality star has hit reality.
Yeah,
right?
That is a good
nice line. Well, I got to see it on stage, though.
There are support groups for Twitter addiction.
Right, there you go. That's his communications director. Reality just hit the reality star.
Go hang out with Kanye West to figure out what your problem is.
But you got to bring that A game or the ground game or whatever you like.
Yeah, not Kanye West's A game. We're talking about Trump's A game problem.
Yeah. So if Cruz melts like he usually does on the debate stage, well, then Trump will be back in the saddle.
I predict that he melts much like his face has over the past couple decades.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. Goldman Sachs has received quite a bit of criticism during this presidential campaign coming from the Democratic side, with Bernie Sanders often bringing them up as an example of the entrenched economic interests and the economic status quo that is not delivering for regular Americans. And then you have Hillary Clinton, who allegedly told them to cut it out. And so this is a lot of criticism all coming from one side. And you won't be surprised to find out that the Goldman Sachs chief doesn't like it. In fact, he thinks that the rhetoric coming from Bernie Sanders is dangerous. Let's watch.
I think he mentioned me by name. I didn't take it personally since we never met. And another kid from Brooklyn. Right. How about that? So look, it has the potential to be, to personalize it. It has the potential to be a dangerous moment, not just for Wall Street, not just for the people who are particularly targeted, but for anybody who's a little bit out of line.
A little bit out of line. Okay,
Yeah.
and he thinks that it could be a little bit dangerous. I personally think that this is a great moment in America, a moment that we've been waiting for since the economy fell apart. There should be more politicians running with the exact same speeches that Sanders has been running. We're going to have more from Lloyd Blankfein. Do you think that it's dangerous? Do you think that it's bad for America, bad for democracy?
You know what's out of line is when you buy all of our politicians and then rig the rules in your favor. Nobody's against capitalism here, okay? I'm a capitalist. I started my own company. I went to Wharton, okay? I understand capitalism, okay? And I'm in favor of it. Nobody's arguing against banking. Of course you need banking. Every society needs banking.
Yeah.
We're arguing against the banksters rigging the rules by legally bribing politicians so that whenever they run into trouble, they get bailed out by us, the taxpayers, or by the Federal Reserve, which endangers the whole economy. So if you say, hey, you know what, capitalism means you suffer the consequences, weed out the weak and all that, and so you should have been weeded out, Goldman Sachs. You were done for.
Yeah.
In 2008, you were in essence bankrupt. And then you came crying home to big government. Now you turn around and say, oh, government is the problem. Wait. You guys are the ones that came crying to us, and government bailed your ass out. So people say we're in favor of big government. We're not in favor of big government as progressives. We don't want big government bailing you out. We don't want big government starting big wars.
Yeah.
It depends on the kind of government you're talking about. But for you to say, oh, this is a dangerous moment. No, nobody's saying go grab a pitchfork and it's these guys are bad guys. I don't think anybody's saying Bernie Sanders is certainly not saying that.
Some of them should have gone to jail.
Okay. No, going to jail for crimes you've committed, whether they're white-collar crimes or otherwise, well, that's the law. And some of you clearly committed fraud, and you should have. But to me, like, I know where they're coming from. I know a lot of people that work there, right? And I don't mean just Goldman Sachs. I mean all on Wall Street. To them, they're like, well, I don't get it, man. I'm playing by the rules. No. You rigged the rules.
Yeah.
And then you play by the rules that you rigged. So you're like, what? I mean, I gave millions of dollars to politicians, and then they gave me billions of dollars back. For example, I get to get interest rates for me at nearly 0%, and then I charge you whatever I like. I'm playing by the rules.
I play by the crazy rules that I have set up, and they are awesome.
Yeah, those are the rules that need to be changed. Those are the ones that have created a dangerous situation for our economy in 2008. It's dangerous to our economy today, and it's not just the general economy. Look, 8 million people lost their jobs. So that was pretty dangerous to those 8 million people.
Yeah.
Where nobody's in favor of doing anything physical to anyone. We just want to set the right rules. And if you're crying about that, you're crying about it because you love the rigged rules.
Yeah.
And if you don't like somebody who says, no, I'm going to bring justice back, well, I guess that's a sad day for you.
Yeah. Well, in this next clip, you're going to see the representative of Goldman Sachs and representatives of the mainstream media combining to, in an extremely patronizing fashion, talk about socialism and why it's in vogue amongst those ignorant young voters supporting Bernie Sanders.
Do you think that Wall Street or the business community should be worried about Bernie Sanders? Or is? I mean, when you see the comments, I'm just curious what the reaction is. I assume you're backing Hillary Clinton?
Yes, you're assuming it.
Yeah. Okay.
Someone told you over in Davos not to assume that.
Not to assume.
Assume that.
I don't want to help or hurt anybody by giving them an endorsement.
Exactly.
In this environment.
I would phrase it different. I mean, the young people in this country are supporting a socialist. So suddenly, socialism, we forgot that socialism doesn't work. I'm ready to fire all the academics at all the universities or send my daughter to Brigham Young or Liberty or something. I don't know.
It's probably a reflection of these people growing up after the financial crisis.
I'll tell you, you know what the best...
Well, I don't know what it's a reflection of, but socialism doesn't work real well, and people's lives aren't really improved by it.
I love that I don't think that she was making the case that after living through the Great Recession, maybe it should cause you to question a little bit of the conventional wisdom for how banks should be set up, the relationship between banks and the government. She accidentally sort of, I think, made that point. And then he just brushed it off. Oh, yeah, socialism doesn't work. You were just reminded of the insane failure of our banking system that not only, as you just pointed out, cost 8 million jobs domestically, but also had ripples that did damage throughout the rest of the world. Socialism didn't work because I base all of my modern day political decisions on memories I have from when I was much, much younger.
Yeah, so crony capitalism didn't work. That's why we had the Great Recession. So it wasn't socialism that brought us the gigantic, world-changing 2008 crash. It was Goldman Sachs and their version of crony capitalism. So we know that doesn't work. That's a fact. Now he says, socialism doesn't work, as if he thinks, well, I don't have to state why. I'm only on TV.
He's on CNBC.
Yeah, what do you want, facts? No, I don't want you to get any facts. That's why I just said I'd like to fire all the professors.
Yeah.
God forbid you should actually get educated. You might find out socialism does work. Now, so I told you a little while ago I'm a capitalist. These words are nearly meaningless, right? What is socialism? So there's socialism in Europe. And capitalism and socialism, in reality, are not that far apart. In fact, I would argue that they're indistinguishable. Why? Okay, because they both agree that government should do some things and private industry should do others. Communism says, no, there should be no private industry, the government should do everything. I guess extreme libertarianism says the government should do almost nothing, right?
We've never experienced that.
Everything else is in the middle. So, for example, in capitalism in America, as we know it, Nike makes shoes, the government doesn't, right? Guess what? In socialist Europe, Nike makes shoes, the government doesn't. So the only disagreement is on, hey, should we have health care where insurance is government-run or privately run? Wow, socialism! Everybody run for the hills. Now, if that's what you mean by socialism, what they do in Europe, then it most definitely works. Their healthcare system ranks in every metric better than ours. You know what that means? They live longer. They live healthier lives. That's pretty freaking important.
They're generally happier. He literally said it doesn't make them happier. Well, you must not be looking at the polls like the WVS.
Because they don't care about the polls. These guys are hacks. CNBC, in a lot of ways, is even more conservative than Fox News Channel because they are the representatives of multinational corporations. So they love the establishment, they want to protect it, and they are the propaganda arm of corporate America.
Yeah.
So of course they're going to have Goldman Sachs on and play patty cakes. Socialism doesn't work. Don't worry about facts. Fire all the professors. Oh my God, everybody. Make sure, no, not Bernie Sanders. Not Bernie Sanders. But that leads me to my final point, which is, isn't it interesting that all of a sudden we're having segments on CNBC who earlier had done this to Bernie Sanders and not given him any coverage, asking if they're afraid of Bernie Sanders?
First they ignore you, then they massively misstate your positions and try to fearmonger based on them.
And by the way, the end of that is, then they lose. So I came to a conclusion reading all the articles from today. I don't know why it was today rather than any other day. But I'm not saying Bernie Sanders is going to win this election. If this might be the last election for the establishment. But if it isn't, it is definitely second to last.
Yeah.
The next election, these guys, they might not win this one. But the next one, there's no way they're going to win. Because the anger is brewing and brewing and brewing. And these guys, ironically, in their ivory tower over there, in their studio in New York, yucking it up. Oh, isn't crony capitalism awesome? Oh, but socialism, boo. You know that in Iowa, Democratic voters prefer socialism to capitalism, right?
Yeah.
So,
like 48-33, I think.
The tide has turned. You know what they're like? They're like the guys sitting on the beach before a tsunami. And they're like, oh, look at that. The water is going the opposite direction. It's going away from us. Everything's fine.
Oh, cool. More beach.
Right. Well, and there's this giant wave right over their head.
Yeah.
And one day they're going to look and go, and then it's going to crash on their heads.
Yeah. I know we're going over. This is a very special election, not because of the presence of Bernie Sanders, but it's special because of the presence of Hillary Clinton, who is a very, we haven't had in my time covering politics or paying attention to politics, we haven't had on the Democratic side a presumptive nominee so unopposed, uncontested, with so much name recognition, so much respect. Valid. It's totally valid. She's earned it over the course of her life. If it was Joe Biden versus Bernie Sanders, or some random governor and not Hillary Clinton, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It would be Bernie. He's having a contest now because Hillary Clinton came very close the last time, and there are a lot of people on the Democratic side who genuinely love her. But it could be very different if not for that.
I can't resist but make comment about the last sentence we didn't run in the video. He said about Blankfein and responding about Sanders said, I don't take it personal since we never met. Another kid from Brooklyn, how about that? Okay, now he might mean, hey, they were both from Brooklyn, which is true, right? And maybe that's all he means. But
I know what you're going to say.
Okay, so Blankfein happens to be Jewish. Now there's these idiots like David Duke who came on this program and told, all the bankers are Jewish. That's not fucking remotely true, okay? And I showed how the head of Bank of America is not, the head of Citigroup was not during the crash, etc. So that's a stupid, stupid argument, right? Now, but every once in a while, the bankers like Blankfein, who happen to be Jewish, will use it as a shield. Hey, don't talk about bankers. That's a little anti-Semitic of you. But it's driving them fucking crazy that they can't do it to Bernie Sanders, who's also a Jewish kid from Brooklyn, right?
They should start a rumor that he was actually born in Kenya. Muslim Bernie Sanders.
Right.
Easy to attack him.
Hey, so he says, another kid from Brooklyn. How about that? How about that, huh? Okay. So
when I think of Brooklyn, I think of hipsters, actually. Mm-hmm. So maybe he's implying that Bernie Sanders is a hipster. Anyway, okay, why don't we jump to what could be your most favorite story of the day?
Definitely.
So now that Bernie Sanders has established from the Iowa caucus that people will actually turn out and vote for him, this is not just excited college students going to rallies. They actually brought him within a couple of less than a percentage point of winning in Iowa. The attacks have begun. The attacks against his policies, the attacks against his political philosophy, and they're only going to become more common and more angry from here on out. But I got bad news for the people launching those attacks. This is not just Bernie Sanders, and it's not just a few Bernie bros or college students who agree with him. Turns out his ideas about what is actually necessary to fix the problems that we have politically and economically in America are incredibly popular positions. And so here's the question that was posed in a recent poll. In the next decade, a political revolution might be necessary to redistribute money from the wealthiest Americans to the middle class. Do you agree with this statement? And now let's look at some of the results. You see there overall 54% strongly or somewhat agree to 30% who strongly or somewhat disagree. They didn't you could have worded that to make it harder to agree with, but they specifically said a political revolution might be necessary to redistribute money. They framed it. If you were a Republican, this is exactly how you would want that worded. And even so, 54% agreed. That's overall. The numbers for independents are almost as good, and actually fewer disagree with it. 51% of independents, who I hear in presidential elections are important people to court, people who don't typically vote obviously support it even more. Even the Tea Party, when you use the conservative anti-socialist wording, still support it, 55 to 36. And seniors, those most conservative of Americans, are basically split on the matter.
38 to 43. They're the only category that isn't in favor of it.
Listed right there. Now, Republicans are a little bit against it because they've been trained over the course of their entire lives to be against it, even if it would economically benefit them, but not Tea Party.
But even then, only a little bit. Okay, so this is so important. So when you hear pundits on television tell you that this is a center-right country, understand they are categorically lying, okay? When they say Americans don't want to redistribute wealth, I just showed you the poll where they want to redistribute wealth, and they're not stuttering, 54 to 30.
They're willing to have a political revolution to get it. Not just, if it's convenient, redistribute wealth.
Not just
turn over the whole thing.
Not just a little bit. A political revolution. So, yes, they want to redistribute the wealth, okay? Now, part of the reason for that is that they are right. In the past, I would have said, no, that's not the right way. First of all of it is meaningless because by definition, taxes redistributes the wealth. It redistributes my wealth to pay for wars, which I'm not in favor of. It redistributes my wealth to pay for tax subsidies for oil companies, which I'm not in favor of. Right? So all taxes do that. But getting past that point, in the past, I would have even been against higher taxes. But when I was growing up, taxes were 70%. That's how old I am, right? And so Ronald Reagan came in and lowered it. If you said to me higher than 70%, I would have said no. But in this day and age, the effective taxes have already been redistributed so much that the money got redistributed to the top. And I've shown you that in chart after chart, and Bernie Sanders talks about it in speech after speech. But the thing is, you don't need those charts or speeches because you already know it in your personal life. You know that your wages have been stagnant for longer than you can remember. And you know that the American economy is doing well. You know the stock market's doing well. You know Wall Street the Wall Street is doing amazing. And the reality is that feeling you have in your gut is right. They did redistribute the wealth already to the top. And it was to the tune of trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
They took your productivity and they rigged the rules so that they would gain from your productivity. Now, what you're saying in those polls is, I'd like that money back, right? And I'm not going to go back and get the trillions of dollars you already stole, right? But we're going to unrig the rules. And if it takes a revolution to do it, we're going to do a revolution. And why does it take a revolution? It takes a revolution because the system has been so corrupted that the powerful have legalized bribery, they buy all of our politicians, and hence we're going to need a revolt in a political sense to get a new system, which, by the way, would be called democracy, where our votes matter more than your money does in terms of how you buy politicians. So going forward, don't let anybody lie to you, okay? The American people are in favor of redistributing wealth to the middle class, and the way they want to do that is very clear, including the Tea Party.
Yeah. And you're going to hear those lies come in a couple of different forms, and some are easier to spot than others. I mean, you're going to see on every episode, every show on Fox News from here on out until the general election, oh, it's crazy, the idea of redistribution, the political revolution, things are doing so well. And that, I mean, it's easy for even a lib to sort of ignore that. But you're going to see editorials from people saying, well, you're still supporting Bernie Sanders. Isn't it time for us to rally around a candidate who can actually win? His rhetoric is just so extreme. Why not go for somebody who's going to, they can get they can make things happen. They can get things done without any evidence actually provided.
But you know what?
It's just college students. Every college student is a big lib. Yeah, they're going to support Bernie Sanders. Let's grow up. Those are the attacks against this revolution that are harder to fend off, but you need to be aware that they're coming. They're already being published as we speak.
You know what, though? Maybe the media, which is 1,000% going to lie about this as they have for decades. And I've been talking about polling, and we're going to give you more specifics in a second, about this for how many years on this show? Because I know, because I showed you the polls. I've proven it over and over again. The country is deeply, deeply progressive, right? Yeah. So, but maybe it doesn't matter that they're going to lie about it. because we've already won. Our side is 54, their side is 30. That's a 24-point lead. So go ahead, keep babbling about, oh, no, I do declare we don't need any political revolution. The system is totally fine. We don't need any change. Nothing radical like Bernie Sanders. Oh, you know what? You just might be helping him because people are also nauseous of you. Your propaganda on television is vomitous.
Yeah.
So give them the rest of the numbers here.
So let's look at some more specific groups broken down. Agreement with the statement was strongest amongst African Americans, 68-12, Hispanics, 65-15, Democrats, not particularly surprising, 68-17, and 18 to 29-year-olds, the youngest voters, 68-20. Support was weakest amongst Republicans, 36-51, but not that weak, by the way, and seniors, 38-43. So even in the groups where it is weakest, 1 out of 3 Republicans thinks we need, again, a political revolution to redistribute wealth. More than 1 out of 3 Republicans agree with that, regardless of what the media would have you believe. And then to a little bit more of Bernie Sanders' policy platform, let's go to this last chart. You're going to see there, do you think we should raise taxes on the wealthy? Not tricky wording. Literally, raise taxes on the wealthy, 73-21. Raise taxes on big corporations, 66-23. They're actually more in support of raising taxes on wealthy individuals than on corporations. So we have a little bit more work to do there. Single-payer health care, 55-28. I've been listening to the media. I've been listening to Hillary Clinton. I would not have believed that that would be the result. And free college, 59-31. Not 4 years of tuition free at a public college like Sanders is saying. Just literally the statement free college is winning. It's got almost twice as much support as the people who oppose it. That's amazing.
2 rock-solid conclusions out of this that are inarguable. First of all, again, I've been reading polls for 20 years. These are not little numbers. These are huge, giant leads like I've never seen before on any of these issues. I've told you for years and years, these issues poll well. The country's center-left, deeply progressive. I've never seen the country this progressive. These are monstrous numbers. So anyone who tells you Bernie Sanders is unelectable is either enormously ignorant, and a lot of them fall in that category. They don't know these poll numbers. There are people who just turned on like a morning show, and the morning show told them he was unelectable. Well, that's what they know.
There's a guy from Goldman Sachs says he's extreme.
Right. Or they are lying to you on purpose. Those are your only 2 options, because those numbers say the guy who holds those positions is the most electable guy in the country, that you don't get any more electable than 73-21. You, as a politician, you cannot hold a position that you could reasonably argue should have more than 73% of the country behind it, right? And he is known as the candidate who is most in favor of that position that is enormously popular. He's based on these numbers, the most electable guy I have ever seen, okay? Now, so that is a rock-solid conclusion. Second of all, if it wasn't for the establishment media against Bernie Sanders, this would be a no-brainer. This would be a cakewalk.
Everyone would already know this information.
Think about it. Imagine if the media actually came out and said, Bernie Sanders is obviously the most electable candidate because his position polls better than I have ever seen any candidate's position poll, which, by the way, is true. In my 20 years of covering politicians and politics, I've never seen any candidate's positions poll as well as this. Imagine if they all said, well, it's obvious. It's obvious. Bernie Sanders is polling the best. Bernie Sanders is the most electable. Look at Bernie Sanders. It's obvious. Nearly 3/4 of Americans want to raise taxes on the rich. It's obvious. 2/3 of Americans want to, come on, raise taxes on corporations already. The American people demand it. If the media said that, this race would already be over.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders is doing this well, even though the propaganda arm of the establishment media, okay, is fighting full force against these ideas. Yeah. So understand who the enemy is. The media in this case, television media, is not neutral. They are the enemy, okay? They are the enemy of not me, you. You're the one saying you want to raise taxes on the rich 73-21. You're the one saying you want to raise taxes on corporations at 66%. You're the one who says at 59% I want free college education for my kids. I want them to have equality of opportunity. Who's stopping it? The media. The establishment media is saying, no, I don't want your kids to get equality of opportunity. I don't want my taxes to go up. We're all incredibly rich on TV. I don't want my taxes to go up. I hate Bernie Sanders. He's dangerous. He's radical. Don't vote for him. So these guys on television, turn them off, turn them off, turn them off, okay? All they are, they're better propaganda than Pravda. Because at least with Pravda, you knew it was run by the government.
Yeah.
These guys are run by the establishment. They just don't tell you.
They're run by the people who own the government. Yeah, raise taxes on corporations. When Joe Scarborough talks about this, his company is owned by an even larger corporation. Yeah, it should be the most obvious thing in the world, especially when Hillary Clinton is not only doesn't have these positions, but is actively speaking out every day against these positions. But hopefully with the internet, people will start to learn that.
All right, we are out of time, but I want somebody to come on and tell me that American people do not want to raise taxes. I dare you to fucking tell me that, okay? So now you know the facts. Don't let them lie to you, man. Go all online, man. Whether it's Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are, okay?
Drudge Report.
You take this poll, and this poll is not different than any other poll, right? It just happens to be the latest poll. And you spread it far and wide, okay? So don't let the media lie to you. You know who they are. You know who they are. They are the protectors of the establishment. But their days are numbered. So tick-tock, tick-tock. It's either this election, and these numbers indicate it might be this election. But it's definitely, if it isn't this one, it's definitely the next one. So tick-tock, tick-tock. I'll see them when their ass is out in the street. We'll be right back. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cheng and Anna. Anna's got some story for you guys in a second. Nice red dress, very Hillary Clinton-esque of you. I mean that in a positive light. I do.
Why?
She has very strong, bright dresses.
Does she?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I like
right.
how she rocks it, and she doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right?
She doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, Honey Badger don't care. Okay, Hillary Clinton don't care. Okay, Casey Kumpel writes, and Jenk, if you ever ran for office, what would you run for? Hashtag Jenk for president. Okay, I don't know, man. Dude, if I'm going to run for office, it's going to be like 20 years from now, okay? After we're done with all this stuff and yada, yada.
Oh, we're done with this stuff in 20 years?
I don't know. And we got money out of politics, and we got a real democracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, like, it'd be so much fun, right? Like, right now, it'd be a mess. Mm-hmm. Because the system is so corrupt, and you got to call for money nonstop. Call for money. Sad. It's ridiculous. It's preposterous. All right, anyway. But I'd love to be in the debates. Yes. The damage I could do in debates would be fun. Okay. So now, Vito, James writes in, Jeb Bush seems like the kind of guy who's addicted to Little Debbie's. Now, Vito, little do you know, that's not Jeb Bush. That's me. So for my brother Jeb Bush there, let me just say, come on, give me a break. Okay, Nutty Bars, my favorite snacks. So it is what it is. Keep it real. The Chris Lepaco writes, the CEO of Goldman Sachs doesn't like Bernie Sanders. That's the best endorsement anyone could get during this race.
By the way, this video just came out of a Bernie Sanders rally, and someone on stage apparently collapsed or fell down. I don't know exactly what happened. And Bernie's in the middle of giving a speech. He, like, stops and rushes over to the guy to say, like, everything about Bernie Sanders is so lovable, right? He's such an awesome person.
No, dude, there's, like, this polling from today. He's got a really good chance of winning. It's just a propaganda machine he's got to get past.
Right.
That's it. He's going to rout some of these Republicans if he's the candidate. The only thing that can stop the Democrats from winning is if they have an establishment person who says, no, I like the wealthy, I don't want to raise tax on them or the corporations. The Democrats would punch themselves in the face with a candidate like that and ruin their chances of winning. So anyway, Connor says, I love the smell of banker fear in the morning. And then Raquel Saldirna says, great explanation of socialism versus capitalism. Can't wait to show this to everyone. Thank you, Raquel, I should say. John Amenta says, excellent description of socialism, Jenk. Thumbs up. That should be a clip on YouTube. Thank you, John. That is usually what we do. And Lawless says, you know that CNBC pundits are right about socialism. Remember how they predicted the 2007 crash? Oh, right. Me neither. What? CNBC, what credibility do they have? No, that's such a great point. Think about that for a second. Right until the crash in 2008, CNBC was telling you everything is great. Mm-hmm. It's all hunky-dory. Oh, problem with the housing market. No, overblown. No, everything's going to be fine.
I have a fun housing market story real quick.
Fun housing market story. All right, go ahead.
So a realtor called me like last week, and apparently there's like a house or a condo or something that he thinks, I should buy. So I basically responded to him by saying, no, I'm just waiting for the housing bubble to burst again, and then I'll buy. And I was very curious to see what his answer was. You know what he said to me? He's like, yeah, that'd be smart. The only thing is interest rates will go up by then, right? So he's conceding that there's a housing bubble. It's incredible.
Down in Miami, maybe we should do a sit-in post-game one day, but I met some folks who are very serious investors in the markets. They're really worried about real estate.
Oh, it will crash again. I know for a fact.
Anna knows for a fact.
No, you guys don't understand. I'm obsessed with the housing market. It's what I do during my free time, not selling, but just researching it. Mm-hmm. And I see very similar patterns, similar trends. Subprime mortgages are still being, thrown out there by banks, not necessarily the big banks, but a lot of the smaller lenders. It's going to be a disaster.
She sees dead mortgages. Okay, all right. Let's see what happens. God knows that you're far more likely to be right than CNBC. Okay, let's move forward.
All right, let's do it. The city of Los Angeles has filed charges against SoCal Gas for the methane leak in Aliso County, which, of course, is the methane leak that you might have heard of in Porter Ranch, California. Now, in the criminal proceeding, SoCal Gas has been charged with failing to inform the authorities immediately upon discovering the blowout at Aliso Canyon storage facility and for spewing contaminants into the air. Now, under the charges the company faces, and this should infuriate everyone, a penalty of $25,000 a day for each of the 3 days it failed to report the breach to the emergency services, and up to $1,000 a day on the air pollution charges until the well is plugged. Again, keep in mind, this is a company that makes so much money in profit, and the charges against them seem serious, but the penalties tied to those charges are laughable, to say the least. What kind of penalty is that?
No, Anna, to be fair, it's $25,000 a day for a whole 3 days. That's $75,000 to this company that makes millions upon millions of dollars. And then every day the gas is out there, they're gonna have to pay another $1,000.
No, you guys understand that thousands of people have gotten sick. Property values in that area have plummeted, and thousands of people have been evacuated from their homes, okay? Not only is this an inconvenience, not only is it leading to health issues, it's having massive ramifications on our environment because the natural gas actually has an even more negative impact on climate change than, the coal industry does, for instance.
The reason for that is methane is more damaging than carbon is.
Yes.
And so this is releasing an enormous amount of methane. In fact, 80,000 metric tons of methane has already been released in the atmosphere. Now, to me, the most damaging part of this is they still don't know how to fix it. So it's been going on now for months.
It started on October 23rd of 2015, and it's still happening. They think that they'll be able to solve this issue by late March. And to just show you the severity of this issue, which, by the way, is not being covered at all in the mainstream media, just take a look at these videos that show you infrared images of the methane leak. This is disastrous. I was recently in the area. The smell is, honestly, for me, debilitating. I couldn't handle the smell. It made me nauseous almost immediately. So SoCal Gas and some of the experts involved in this are claiming, oh, no, this isn't going to harm your health whatsoever. Of course, they have an incentive to say that. It's harming our health, it's harming our environment, and these so-called penalties are ridiculous. When are they going to be held accountable for their actions? The lack of regulation is exactly why stuff like this happens in this country.
So credit to MSNBC for at least giving it that coverage. And now I want you to think about two different things here. One is they tell us, no, we've got too much regulation. Now you tell me you're doing this natural gas and that when there's a leak, you don't know how to solve it for 6 months in your best case scenario, right? Shouldn't we have a regulation that says, hey, if you're going to release this much methane into the air, even for 1 day, let alone for months on end, you should have a way to plug that hole. They say, no, it's really hard. The pipes are buried under the ground. They're very hard to reach. You don't know where the leak is coming from. I understand it's very hard. That's why you should have worked on a solution before the leak.
Think about every other industry and the safeguards that you need to have in place to ensure that people are safe, right? Why is it that when it comes to corporations or the oil and coal company or the natural gas companies, why is it that they're able to get away with no regulation whatsoever? You know why. It's because they fund the politicians to ensure that they don't have to deal with these regulations. But they're messing with our environment. They're messing with our health. They're messing with our livelihood.
So that goes to point number 2. What were the good people of Flint, Michigan told? No, I know you say you're nauseous, you say you have headaches, and you say there's something really, really wrong here, but we don't really believe you. No, we're going to study this for another year, and then if your children are getting poisoned in the meanwhile, well, I guess that's a tough break for you. Now we have this methane gas pouring out of this hole in the ground at extraordinary, record-breaking rates. People are saying, oh my God, it smells terrible. I can sense it. Like they could see it in Flint, Michigan. The water is orange, it's yellow, right? They're like, no, don't believe your lying eyes. Here, they're like, don't believe your lying nose. The government is telling you it's okay. Now, finally, they're a little mad because they're all panic. Turns out everybody's starting to get really mad about this. So California, which had really not been doing much about it, now Kamala Harris and Governor Brown are like, oh, yeah, we're on it. Criminal charges, civil charges, we'll go get them, okay? Many months later. Nice to see you show up to work after people start getting mad. But don't believe your lying senses. And, oh, you're nauseous, you got headaches, you claim you have health problems. Nah, I don't believe you. What are you? You're not a legitimate person. It's not like you're a corporation.
Yeah.
Okay, you're just a human being. And we don't trust you. What are you guys going to sue us? No. It's all these lawyers who are trying to get lawsuits and stuff like that. Yeah, because there's all this methane gas coming out and it's making us sick, right? Now, no, we just don't believe human beings.
So
if you were credible, like a major media organization or a major corporation, then we would believe you.
Another thing to take into consideration is there's a huge difference between Flint, Michigan and Porter Ranch, California. Flint, Michigan, as you guys know, includes people that are in a lower socioeconomic status. And usually the criticism is, if you're not living in a wealthy neighborhood, well, no one's looking out for you. But guess what? No one's looking out for anyone in the U.S. because Porter Ranch is a very affluent area, and it turns out that they don't matter either. When you're up against a corporation or when you're up against corporate money, it doesn't matter how well off you are or what kind of awesome neighborhood you're living in, you're getting screwed, and that's what's happening to these people. Also, there's another wrinkle in this story. Apparently, SoCal Gas is still billing people in Los Angeles, and the bills...
to be fair to them, they're losing a lot more gas. A lot more gas is being used.
Well, residents in Los Angeles have noticed that their gas bill has gone up considerably. And so a council member is asking for an investigation into that because he believes that some of the burden on SoCal Gas as a result of this methane leak is now being transferred on to residents in Los Angeles. So there are people who evacuated their homes in Porter Ranch and their bills have gone up. How is your gas bill more expensive if you're not living in that house? It's disgusting.
Their house is drenched with gas.
Incredible. All right. Let's talk about student loans. A new study indicates that the vast majority of teenagers who take out loans in order to go to college don't actually understand what the terms of those loans are. In fact, the information revealed by this study shows you just how disastrous our current state of higher education is. So the organization that did this study is known as Lendidoo, okay? And when Lendidoo talked to 477 undergraduate and graduate students at 3 Bay Area campuses, it found that only 6% of them know how long they would be repaying the debt. Only 8% knew the interest rate on their loan.
So if you're taking out a loan for your house, you put a lot of thought into it because you're going to have that loan a lot of times, your mortgage for quite some time. And boy, even a small movement in interest rates is going to affect how much you pay, so you pay a lot of attention to it. But if you're getting a student loan, which is also true, and in fact could stay with you longer than a mortgage, you're like, I guess I need a student loan. I'm going to college. I said, I'm 18. Come on, let's party. Let's put it away, right?
Yeah.
So they're not paying attention to how much their interest rate is. They're believing they should pay attention to it. But it's hard to tell somebody, pay attention to something that's going to be relevant to you 4 years from now.
Yeah.
Right? Let alone 20 years from now. So I'm not, even though the numbers are depressing, I'm not surprised by it.
So if Bernie Sanders' plan of making public education, meaning public universities, free for all, if that actually happens and it goes through, that would solve quite a bit of these issues. However, let's say that doesn't happen, right? And we're not going to live in this idealistic, awesome society. Why don't we have classes in high school that educate these teenagers about what a loan is, what's an interest rate. When I was fresh out of high school, I didn't know what an interest rate was. I had no idea, because these are issues that you don't really have to deal with until you're well into your adult years. And so now, since students have to take out these massive loans, they need to understand what the consequences of those loans are. So let's have an elective class, not even an elective class, a mandatory class that high school students need to take either in junior or senior year, so they know what they're getting themselves into before taking out these loans. Now, more than 90% of the students did not know which type of loans accumulate interest during school and which do not. 73% thought that Sallie Mae, which for years collected federal student debt, was a person rather than a company. It's amazing.
It's kind of funny. And look, I don't know who I thought Sallie Mae was when I was 18. And if you don't know what Sallie Mae is, okay, I hear you, brother. It depends on your situation. But if Sallie Mae, whoever she is giving you a lot of money that you're going to have to pay back and is going to cost you a ton of money in the long run, you should find out who she is.
Yeah, you should. Look, I don't blame the students. I know that some people are going to get tough on the students, and I can understand the reasoning behind that. But just keep in mind that when you're a high school student, you're told over and over again by counselors and adults that the end goal is to get a college degree, and you get that college degree under any and all circumstances, right? And a college education is important, but you're told and you're lied to as a teenager in regard to, oh, if you get that college degree, you can do whatever you want, and you'll be wealthy, and you'll pay off those loans, and everything's going to be great. No, it doesn't work that way. You're going to graduate college, and you're not going to make a lot of money. You're going to make a shitty amount of money, and it's going to take you the rest of your life to pay back $150,000 in student loan debt. We need to be honest with students. Number one thing is stop lying to them and telling them that they're going to be wealthy after they get a college degree. It's a misconception that is constantly told to you when you're a teenager, and it drives me crazy.
Okay, there we have slight disagreements, right? So you're right in general. Like, as soon as you graduate, they don't throw rainbows and unicorns at you, and it's not like you're on a boat.
Yeah.
Right? At the same time, I believe you can get wealthy, but
it's very rare.
Okay.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of work, and it's not the most common occurrence, right? So the bottom line is we agree that you've got to be a lot more realistic. For example, only 28% of students know that government can take money from their wages, their Social Security payments, their tax refunds to recoup outstanding loans. And that's a pretty important thing to know.
Yes.
And over 70% don't know it. Only 37% understood that if you declare bankruptcy, it's extremely hard to get rid of student loans. So these are basic facts that it's incumbent upon us to teach people so that they are completely aware of life-altering decisions that they're making at that point.
Exactly.
Right? And just so you guys know, Freddie Mac is also not a burger, also not a person, okay? Sallie Mae's a company. Freddie Mac, I don't know if you guys know, also not a human being or a sandwich.
All right, let's talk about marijuana now. From college to marijuana, you see how things are going? Mm-hmm. All right. Researchers looked into the health ramifications of smoking marijuana every single day for 5 years. Now, this is important to do because, as you guys know, since marijuana is a Schedule I substance in the U.S., that's hindered a lot of research into the impact that it could have on your health. But this 5-year study did find a negative impact of marijuana that I want to share with you. But I also want to make clear that the negative impact is so incremental, and this study failed to find any causation. So take it with a grain of salt, but also understand that this kind of proves to me that marijuana is harmless. Let me give you the details. Now, the researchers examined data on the marijuana habits of nearly 3,400 Americans over a 25-year period. At the end of the study period, the subjects took a battery of tests designed to assess cognitive abilities, memory, focus, and the ability to make quick decisions, and etc. All right, so the study found that people who smoked marijuana on a daily basis for a long period of time, 5 years or more, had poorer verbal memory in middle age than people who didn't smoke or who smoked less. Okay, so how bad is it? That sounds bad, right? You don't want to have your memory impacted by marijuana. Well, the results are actually not that crazy. The first group consists of 10 people. So to simplify it, think of it this way. The first group consists of 10 people who don't smoke pot or only do so occasionally. Let's say on average, people in this group would be able to remember 9 out of 15 words. The second group consists of people who smoke pot every single day over a period of 5 years. On average, they'd be able to recall 8.5 out of 15 words. So the difference is about 1.5 words on average. And that's from smoking marijuana every day for 5 years.
I thought it went from 9 to 8.5. Isn't that just half a point?
No. Well, by the way, that's just to simplify the
sorry.
results of the study, guys. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, okay. 9 to 8.5.
Yeah.
It's only half a word.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, it's okay. So, look, there's a couple of things here. Number one, I'm still concerned about it. See, I almost forgot what I was going to say. I'm smoking too much pot. I'm not. And I know that in the very brief times that I have, you forget what you were about to say.
Yeah.
Right? So it would not be good for me to smoke it before I came on air without a teleprompter. I think there is something there, and they've proven that there's something there. But that's if you smoke for a long time. And then even then, Anna points out, not that much of a difference. So if you're stretching and stretching and stretching to find damage that marijuana does, okay, fine. A little bit, right? And I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't smoke every day for 25 years straight or 5 years straight, right? But if you wanted to stretch to find out the damage that alcohol does, you wouldn't need to stretch very much. If you wanted to stretch to find out the damage that tobacco does, you wouldn't have to stretch at all. And those are perfectly legal.
Yeah. By the way, I want to make clear that they did not find causality here. It could just be a coincidence. So as reported, it could be the case that heavy pot use makes short-term memory bad. That could be the case. However, it could also be that people who operate at a lower level of cognitive function are more inclined to smoke weed. So they need to do more studies into this to figure out whether or not, the results are that notable or even accurate.
So look, the good news is none of this matters. We're going to win, and pot's going to be legal everywhere.
Right.
Okay, because this is total insanity. Obviously, it shouldn't be illegal. Obviously, it's not worse than alcohol. It's not worse than tobacco, and those are perfectly legal. These are the most obvious things in the world. We will win, they will lose. And so in the short term, yes, the forces of good lose often, right? In the long term, we have an enormous advantage they don't have. We're right. Yet money can defeat a lot of correctness. Okay, you can be right all day long and still lose for a long, long time. But in the end, all these things are going to lose, okay? Religion's going to lose. No one spoke to a bush on top of a mountain. Okay, it just didn't happen. The river wasn't split, or the Red Sea wasn't split. They're going to lose. The embargo with Cuba, it didn't work for 50 years. They're going to lose, okay? And pot is a relatively healthy drug. They're going to lose. They're going to lose. We're going to win because we're right. We have facts on our side. Doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow, but with pot, it's in the middle of happening right now.
Let's take our first break. When we come back, Elon Musk does something very petty. I'll tell you what it is.